Federal government calls for just energy transition. Nigerian banks reactivate international spending on Naira debit cards after 3-year suspension. Oil tumbles as OPEC Plus hikes August output more than expected. Asian stocks cautious as tariff uncertainty looms. On the program, we will be taking a look at the economic implications of new expanded structure of the Nigerian economy to reflect accurate performance as National Bureau of Statistics is set to unveil it. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Musa Abubakar, your guide. Now let's bring you up to speed with business development. Nigeria is reaffirming its commitment to strategic collaborations that translate to sustainable and inclusive development for all, as the country calls on the BRICS to lead a new path of justice in the world. The president made the commitment while addressing the 2025 BRICS Summit of Heads of State and Government in Rio de Janeiro. State House correspondent Musbaut and Wahab reports.
President Bola Tinubu is here, representing Nigeria, recognized as a partner country to the BRICS. And the characteristic pleasantry again between the two friends as President Luis Lula da Silva received his invited guests. President of the largest black nation in the world featured in the circle as the bloc focused on how to strengthen Global South cooperation for more inclusive and sustainable governance. Such issue bothers President Tinubu from Africa's perspective. The Nigerian leader cited the climate change adaptation programs, for example, and acknowledged how Africa suffers the most despite contributing the least to the global emission. And so, with some global resolutions skewed against Africa, President Tinubu is hoping that the BRICS can rewrite the story in fairness.
Nigeria therefore called on BRICS to lead a new path of justice anchored on fairness, sustainable technology, transfer and accessible financing, such that emerging economies can fully benefit from the various initiatives in this field.
He highlighted Nigeria's effort to accelerate renewable energy adoption, mainstream climate action, promote nature-based solutions and strengthen urban resilience, among other decisions to ensure inclusivity in growth and prosperity.
We believe the BRICS must not only be a bloc of emerging economies, it must be a beacon of emerging solutions and resolutions rooted in solidarity, self-reliance, sustainability, and shared growth, prosperity of a common future.
Expressing the country's strong belief in the South-South cooperation, President Tinubu indicated Nigeria's readiness as the giant of Africa to take its place in global decision-making.
Nigeria strongly believes in South-South cooperation. We can therefore not be passive participants in global decision-making. We must be architects of a future that addresses the specific need and concerns of youth, which represent 70% of our population in Nigeria. Therefore, we believe Nigeria remains guided by our long-term vision 2050 and nationally determined contribution.
President Tinubu affirmed to the bloc his administration's resolve to transform challenges into opportunities through purposeful programs and policies.
As the push for cleaner energy grows stronger, President Bola Tinubu has urged a fair energy transition that will not jeopardize developing economies. Speaking at the 17th Summit of the Economic Cooperation Organization in Kehinde, Azerbaijan, the president, represented by the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, stated that given the adverse effects of climate change, including devastating droughts, floods, desertification, and extreme heat waves, a climate-resilient future is essential. He advocated for eco-partnerships to enhance access to cleaner energy technologies, share expertise, and invest in regional power pools to electrify underserved communities.
Infrastructure, smarter energy systems, and integration of trade corridors. This is why Nigeria is supporting a reinforced Eco-Africa trade corridor. Let us harmonize tariffs, simplify custom procedures, and develop multimodal logistic platforms that can efficiently link Africa with the rest of the world.
Oil prices slipped more than 1% on Monday after OPEC Plus surprised markets by hiking output more than expected in August, raising concerns about oversupply. Brent crude futures fell 80 cents to $67.50 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $65.68, down $1.32. Now, the National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, said it is ready to unveil the country's much-awaited rebased gross domestic product, estimated to provide a more accurate and comprehensive reflection of the country's economic structure and performance. Though GDP basically measures the rate of growth of an economy, the statistical agency further explained in a statement that the proposed figures emphasize not just size, but also the structure of the economy, particularly areas where it is thriving and where attention is required. The rebasing exercise, which updates the base year from 2010 to 2019, comes over a decade after the 2014 re-benchmarking. However, MBS said the new GDP estimates will capture emerging sectors and technological advancements that have transformed the economy in recent years. The rebasing is also expected to reveal shifts in the contributions of various sectors, including the digital economy, creative industries, and informal markets, many of which were previously underreported or overlooked. Now, to take a look at the economic implications of the new expanded structure of the Nigerian economy to reflect accurate performance, as National Bureau of Statistics is set to unveil it, we have an economic development expert, Kolawole, Kehinde. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, well, why is the GDP rebasing important to an economy such as that of Nigeria? And well, what economic distortions could possibly occur when it's somehow delayed?
Thank you. The rebasing of the GDP is a critical component and a global best practice that each country needs and ought to do on a 5-year basis. What has happened in Nigeria is that there's been delay in bringing out this or rolling out this rebasing on a consistent basis. And you know, one of the challenges is the fact that sourcing for information is quite tedious. And but today, because of the advancement in technology and access to improved data quality, It has become expedient and important for the National Bureau of Statistics to do that, and that is what they are exactly doing. Like you rightly mentioned, the GDP speaks to the total output of a country, and a country like Nigeria, there have been so many challenges actually aggregating the GDP. You know, the GDP speaks to the size and also speaks to the structure of an economy. I think the last time I came here, before I could even talk about Nigeria being the largest economy, we discovered that.
But is Nigeria the largest economy?
No,
because last time I checked,
they had slipped.
Okay, that slipped. We're talking about fourth
Yes,
largest economy.
that's what I'm trying to say. So, and what does that mean? Because some sectors were not really captured. You mentioned sectors like digital economy, sectors like the creative industry, and the informal sector have been largely left out. And that distorts the structure and the nomenclature of our economy. I think bringing them now into the system makes an holistic view and a comprehensive and transparent view of our economy. And I think that is a good step in the right direction.
Okay, Nigeria is the fourth largest economy in Africa. How will this affect its ranking by the time we get to see the rebase GDP figures?
Right now, at the position at which Nigeria is, the reason why we say Nigeria is at the fourth is because of the GDP that it currently turns now. By the time we have a rebase and it's been brought out, there is a likelihood that the GDP will increase. And don't get it wrong, not that the economy has improved, it just shows you a new way of measuring what is exactly in the economy. So we are likely to see an increase in the number of GDP and not in increase in economic activities.
So I understand that there's a choice for 2019 as the base year, but will it actually reflect the realities on ground?
Okay, you know, COVID happened in 2019, and that altered many economies of many countries. We feel that growth has not been exceptionally high since we transited out of COVID. And I think using COVID as a base year, it's not disingenuous, it's a good way to start. And since this rebasing is going to continue, we know strongly that in the next couple of years, maybe by 2020, maybe like 2030, there will be another one. So for 2019 to 2025, that's a 5-year period, 5 plus or minus a period, which makes it ideal for rebasing,
okay,
for benchmarking.
Which sectors do you think will likely be more visible by the time this rebasing is done? And what does this tell us about the evolving structure of Nigeria's economy?
Okay, I'm sure you might have probably watched the content today. And you know, the Nigerian youths are really bullish when it comes to content creation. And if you are just as curious as myself, you see that most of these content creators make a lot of money. Most of that activity is not captured in the economy. You look at the digital economy too, we find out that there is a lot going on in that space and very few has been captured. And the interesting one is the creatives, talking about the people that are selling clothing online and e-commerce businesses. That's really going to show that one, Nigeria is really serious about diversifying its economy, moving from a totally reliant oil to a non-oil. And if you look at the analysis over the last 2 years, we've seen that the non-oil sector have been contributing some significant amount to the GDP. We hope to see that in the rebasement.
Okay, these sectors that you said that they're going to be included to have a much better picture of the Nigerian economy. Do you see it changing perception about Nigeria's productivity?
Absolutely. The first perception it will change is when you look at the quantum of debt Nigeria is really amassing at the moment. The GDP shows as if we're stifled by debt. By the time the GDP is rebased, we'll see that there will be a perception of debts, giving investors confidence to come and invest in Nigeria. It also will help us look at critically the key sectors that are driving growth, and you see where support can be meted to them. As an SME practitioner and facilitator, we'll find out that because there have been so many engagement with DFIs and some other institutions, a lot of the informal sector have been gradually brought to the formal sector. That will show traction in the GDP, and we know that the informal sector, which is largely not underreported or largely overlooked, will continue to see some traction. You also agree with me that due to the newly signed tax laws, you see that many people will also be brought into the bracket. So it gives you a holistic view of what is likely going to happen.
Okay, now, this conversation is just between you and me and the, people that are involved in this, and, a population of people that really understand how this thing works. But for the common man on the streets, how can you paint a picture for him, please?
Fantastic. Well, if the economy, if the government, by the time the government announces these figures, it will not just announce figures, it will also announce what these figures are made up from, the sectors where these figures are being made. So if you hear that there is an increase in the digital economy, if you're a digital nomad or you're a digital or content creator, you know that you are heading to the right direction and you're a contributor to the economy. What does that give you? It gives you a sense of belonging. That's one. Then two, it makes you know that your value that you are creating is appreciated by the government. It also gives you the opportunity to assess government interventions, because right now your data are being captured and they are likely to help you promote your chances of getting support or interventions from the private sector as well as from the public sector.
And how do you see this impacting on investor confidence?
This is going to be, every country, you see their ratings. And when you find ratings being on the high, you find out that there are many investors that will come in, especially portfolio investors. But Nigeria is wary of portfolio investors. We want real-time investors that would invest in the local economy. And when we look at the key sectors where these growths are coming from, I can assure you that there will be investments that will drive change within the system to create impact, and majorly to create impact in the local economy.
Okay, before I let you go, how do you see this impacting on debt to GDP and tax to GDP?
Okay, great. For debt to GDP, debt means the number of the quantum of debt you have, and in line with the GDP. So the higher the debt to GDP, that means it shows that your economy is toxic. The lower debt and higher GDP shows that your economy is improving, and that's what it means. You ask another question. I think you asked another question, which I can really process now. And what that will mean is that it will create an atmosphere whereby we know that our economy is improving. But don't let us get it wrong. There are still so many challenges in terms of regulation, compliance, and policy making. I think this rebasing is also going to help in ensuring that we put in the right policies that will guide and that will impact further developmental projects.
Put in the right policy to guide us. Well, that's your final word. Thank you very much, Kolawole Kehinde.
It's always a pleasure
having you in the program.
Thank you.
Several Nigerian commercial banks have resumed international transactions on Naira-denominated debit cards, allowing customers to once again make payments on global platforms after nearly 3 years of suspension. The move marks a significant step toward easing everyday banking for Nigerians who, since 2022, had been unable to use their Naira cards for services like Apple subscriptions, Twitter Premium, network, and other international payments. The restrictions were initially put in place amid persistent foreign exchange pressures, dollar shortages, and rising demand in the lead-up to 2023 general elections. Go falls on trade deal progress, tariff reprieve extension. Let's now take a trip to the commodities market. Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his commitment to eliminating obstacles hampering Nigeria's agricultural growth, particularly in the livestock sector, to achieve food security and enhance export capabilities. In a bilateral meeting ahead of the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Tinubu and Brazilian President Luiz de Silva agreed to deepen cooperation in agriculture, oil and gas, mining, technology and trade. The Nigeria Data Protection Commission has fined MultiChoice Nigeria the sum of 766.2 million naira for violating the Nigeria Data Protection Act. The commission, in a statement signed by its head of legal enforcement and regulations, Babatunde Bamiboye, said the investigation of MultiChoice, which commenced in second quarter of 2024, was triggered by suspected breach of privacy rights of MultiChoice subscribers and illegal cross-border transfer of personal data of Nigerians. Exchange rate gap narrows on rising forex inflows, CBN policies. How much is the Naira exchanging for other currencies? Let's see. Nigeria stock market closed week on 244 billion naira. That was, market transaction last week. Well, there was a loss, by investors. Now, Lainka has that report.
The NGX All-Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 0.83% to close the week at 120,989.66 basis points and 76.339 trillion naira. A total turnover of 5.466 billion shares worth 108.09 billion naira in 118,570 deals were traded last week by investors on the floor of the exchange. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 2.739 billion shares valued at 34.538 billion naira in 42,646 deals, contributing 50.12% and 31.95% to the total equity turnover in volume and value. The oil and gas industry followed with 852.042 million shares worth 39.838 billion naira in 10,555 deals, while the third place was the services industry with a turnover of 400.194 million shares worth 2.517 billion naira in 9,214 deals. Trading in the top three equities, namely Royal Exchange PLC, Access Holdings PLC, and J. Paul Gold and Ventures PLC, accounted for 1.688 billion shares worth 12.816 billion naira in 8,036 deals, contributing 30.88% and 11.86% to the total equity turnover in volume and value. A total of 218,675 units of ETPs valued at 18.792 million naira were traded in 304 deals. Also, a total of 165,333 units of bonds valued at 170.373 million naira were traded in 25 deals. On summary of price changes, 78 equities appreciated in price during the week, 20 equities depreciated in price, while 49 equities remained unchanged. Olainka Ojo for Business Express.
Our Business Express returns on Tuesday by 9:30 a.m. I'm Musa Abubakar. Thanks for your company.